For the longest time, Project Mycer has been missing something pretty crucial. Take a listen. Ah, wait, you can't. 1 second. That's better. As I was building the playtest demo that I talked about in my last devlog, the main thing I wanted was to get good quality feedback on the game's combat. And I knew that until this game had at least some audio, the combat was always going to feel lacking. In this devlog, I'll be joined by my friend Ed Moore, who has brought his background and experience with audio into this project. We'll go over not only how the audio was implemented, but also how we had to collaborate and work to build solutions to various problems that we encountered. My name is Skylar Fox, and this is Project Mycer. Up until this point, Project Mycer was a completely solo project. I was doing just about everything myself. I like to think of myself as a bit of a jack of all trades with art. I have my toes dipped in art, animation, cinematography, gameplay, etc. But the area that I don't feel particularly strong at has been the audio side. Ed and I have known each other for a few years through work, and one day after work we were talking about this project and how things were going with it. He has actually had a background in education learning about audio integration for video games, and so after some discussion we decided to work together. And right now I'm actually going to turn some time over to him so he can share his perspective on working in this project.
Hello, I'm Ed Moore, and I'm guest speaker today to talk about the audio aspect for Skylar's passion project. I volunteered my services to do audio integration, sound design. I was pretty excited that he's using Unreal Engine 5, which utilizes the new metasounds, the new way of integrating audio natively within the engine, and it's been a crazy adventure thus far, just learning how to use the engine and learning about metasounds and getting the audio integrated into his demo. To showcase that, this is the combat demo, which shows one small aspect of his whole game where I've integrated some audio. And when Skylar first showed me this, there was no audio, and going into this room, the first thing I thought of was, how does this room sound? How is it supposed to sound? When the main character is walking, how does his footsteps sound in the room? So I added a little bit of an ambient drone, kind of sounds like a AC howling, and I added a little bit of reverb, integrated some kicks, punches, whooshes. And again, this is all first run audio, L0, quality level 0. One thing I also had to think about was this armor, what kind of material it is. So I picked Skylar's brain so he could paint his world for me. So I was just thinking all kinds of stuff on how does this supposed to sound. He's walking on dirt, gravel, concrete, wood, wooden floors, stairs, etc. So that's the kind of things that I'm bringing to the table for his project.
And that's one of the beneficial things I found through this collaboration, was that Ed is someone who will ask a lot of questions and really try to get a good grasp on the world. And oftentimes it has forced me to try to figure out answers to questions that I had previously not really thought much about. When trying to juggle nearly everything in a project solo, it can be easy for certain cracks to just fall through, and collaborating with someone can help mitigate that. More often than not, when Ed would ask questions about how something should sound, I tried to lean toward giving him creative freedom and trusting his judgment, but it has always led to me having to think more deeply about some of the details behind the game's world. This in turn has also led to me creating a Confluence page where I can store and share a lot of details about the game's story, as well as some technical information and documentation. These are the kind of things that I didn't think to do before, mostly because it was a solo project, but they quickly become necessary once another person is involved.
So alongside of just straight up learning how to navigate through this whole menu, Skylar was very patient in just showing me the ropes on how to navigate certain things, learning the file structure, and basically the area that I'll be primarily working in to integrate audio. So I do have my own audio folder. I have various sound effects, whooshes, guns, grenades, footsteps, and here's the Masked Guardian. There's a walk and run footsteps, and these are the actual WAV files that I have for the various footsteps. And this is the metasounds, something like a blueprint. Once the trigger happens with the animation, it just goes from left to right. That's how this flow works. It's left to right all the way to the output. And I have some various conditions in here and so forth and so on. And where you saw those variations, it starts off with this array that goes in here, where this wave asset array goes into this player right here. So it does all this logic first and then goes into mono sound, goes into a mono mixer. And I have some gain sliders to give it a little bit more boost, because once it goes through this, the sound kind of gets attenuated. So I gave it more volume. But by selecting this, these are the various footsteps on the left. So I have those weighted where certain steps will play more or less depending on the weight I give it. So as far as challenges are concerned, there is an enemy, and originally I had made the sound design to match the animation timing. So looking at the side profile, and you can see when it hits that area or zone, you'll see here the soldier shaking its arms like it's firing a machine gun. This is the meta sound for it. So I'll play it. That's about the timing. I have 3 sounds. With those 3 sounds, it plays at a certain rate that's controlled with this. Like, let's play it again. So I use this logic and increase this knob slider to match the timing window where that animation was for the gunfire. So I actually had timed out a repeated gunfire for that duration window. And I was like, okay, done. And I put animation notify at that point, and I thought I was good. So when testing the demo, when you kill it in the middle of its firing, the firing still plays, but the enemy's dead. So I was like, I don't know how to fix this. So I hit up Skylar, and he actually made a workaround, but he was able to, using his blueprint knowledge, to actually do some logic where the audio would stop if it was dead or interrupted or so forth and so on.
For most of the sounds that play in a skeletal animation, Ed would use the standard play sound notify, which works great for quick single sound effects, but in the case of that gun sound effect, that notify wouldn't be capable of reacting if the animation got interrupted. So I had to make a custom anim notify state called play sound timed. Here, I take a lot of the same parameters that the normal play sound would have, such as volume, pitch, and bone attachments, but then I also add custom variables that allow the notify to talk to metasound parameters. With how Ed set up the gunfire metasound, it was simple enough to tell this notify, hey, check for this parameter labeled as shots per minute, then set the parameter's value to this number once the anim notify state has reached its endpoint. I did it this way so that the audio doesn't just abruptly end, but has a bit of a transition out.
So that was one of the obstacles we overcame. But again, our relationship is, I have this vision of audio. If I can't do something, hey, tell the developer, and it comes up with a solution.
And this kind of back and forth that Ed and I had was helpful for me in knowing when certain functions or features I made were too limited or lacking in some way. It was a fairly regular occurrence when I would create different functions or animation notifies for things such as attacks impacting an enemy or a character's footstep detecting the ground's material, only to then hear back from Ed questions like, how do I do this thing? And I have to go, oh, good question. You can't. Let me fix that and add that as a feature. And that's been a big takeaway for me throughout this whole process, has been the importance of frequent communication and feeling comfortable enough to voice concerns or ask questions. Sometimes it can be tempting to withhold certain questions lest we risk making ourselves appear annoying or dumb, but the reality is that more often than not, asking those questions will lead to solutions, or they will expose some clear issues early in development. Once I started distributing the playtest demo and getting some feedback, nobody had anything negative to say on the audio front. I think the most we had was people mentioning the lack of music, which is obviously a temporary thing, but I'm glad that I brought Ed on board to assist with audio before releasing this demo, because if I had shared the playtest demo without audio, I know that the players would have been too distracted by that to be able to really enjoy the game's combat. It's a crucial element in every game where, even if you don't think about how it's there, its absence is always noticeable. But that should do it for today's devlog. Thank you all very much for watching, and thanks Ed for your help and for sharing your experience here. Be sure to subscribe to the channel if you want to see more of Project Mycer in the future. Take care, everyone.